Hello, this is Dr. Stanley Lang, and welcome to this video. This is a continuation of the series I've been doing on whole person health, which is health of body, mind, and spirit, and the integration of the three, which I believe is the best way to both pursue health and also to deal with disease. And today I'd like to focus on one aspect of that, which is emotional health, and especially the role of anger, resentment, and unforgiveness in robbing us of emotional health. The reason I like to talk about this today is because I saw two different patients today who were both dramatically affected by embedded anger from previous events. In both cases, it related to somebody that had died that was close to both of these patients. In one case, somebody had died a fairly quick and unexpected death. The other case, it was a very slow, gradual process, many years of suffering of the patient and the relative. And in both cases, though, there was a lot of embedded anger, which in one case caused the person to really lose their spiritual focus. So this is a good example of how emotional distress that isn't dealt with can lead to spiritual decline. Because in this case, the person's anger was directed primarily at God for what had happened. And when that happens, we don't have a lot of options. And one of the things that people tend to do is just to sort of uh, not deal with the situation. We sort of cover it up and pretend it doesn't affect us too much, when in fact it's dealing with us in a big way at a deep level. And this happened in the other person's life also, although this person wasn't angry at God, just angry at the circumstances that had led to her loved one's suffering. And one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that anger doesn't serve us except to alert us to the fact that there is an issue. But staying angry never helps. Now, some people run their lives on the energy of anger, but that is not helpful in terms of pursuing some of the other goals that we may have, such as trying to be a loving person and growing in relationship with God. So one might get a lot of energy from anger and get a lot of things supposedly done, but you leave a wake of destruction in your path. And so there are better ways, and the better way is to understand that anger does lead to resentment almost immediately unless you deal with it, and resentment almost always leads to unforgiveness, again, unless you deal with it. Now, one of the simple strategies for dealing with it is just spending some time every evening and reflecting on the question, okay, what am I angry about today that I didn't deal with yet? Now, you can do this with a journal even more effectively. That's the subject of a different video. But just asking the question, reflecting, what am I angry at and who am I angry at and where do I have resentment and unforgiveness, and just choosing to forgive. Now, if you have a spiritual component to your life, that is, you've got a relationship with God, then bringing God into the situation makes it work a whole lot better. Trying to do this on willpower is difficult. You can move a little ways down the path on willpower, but having the grace of God involved with helping you to forgive is much more effective. So if you have any kind of an element of relationship with God, that's when you want to bring God into the situation to help through the forgiveness process. And sometimes you have to go through this same issue over and over for days, weeks, and sometimes even months, because it feels the same, even though you're peeling the layers of the onion. Finally, you get down to the base and the onion's gone, but it will still feel the same sometimes. But if you don't deal with it, it will deal with you. And it will deal with you in some sort of physical symptom or sickness. And from a physiologic perspective, partly what's going on is that this is triggering the chronic stress response, which disables your immune system. But even if your immune system wasn't disabled, leading to cancer or bad infections, even if that wasn't the case, you still would manifest these unresolved issues in some sort of physical symptoms. So my encouragement today is to understand that anger is there whenever significant disappointment happens. And if you don't deal with it, it almost always leads to resentment. And that almost always leads to unforgiveness. And that leads to pathology in your body. And it also leads to often spiritual pathology, because your relationship with God just sort of seems to become distant and almost a distant memory sometimes for some people. So focus on this issue on a nightly basis, and it will help you to be healthier in your emotional life, but also your physical and spiritual life too. Hope you found this helpful. God bless and have a great day.